This is the podcast about the golden age of hip-hop. Dance. .808 freestyle. The culture, the happenings, and the stories of early hip-hop. Come on, let's ride. Across all socials, subscribe at iTunes, iHeart, YouTube, Stitcher, and many more. Welcome to the Old School Rewind Podcast with Aaron Goodwin.
That's Don Amici right there, and you are in the house. This is the Old School Rewind Podcast, live from the 35 Acres and a Microphone podcast facility, which is a little tiny farmhouse in the middle of 35 acres of almond trees in Central California, the small city of Ripon. You'll find me out in the country, me, some dogs, my wife, a few guns, and my love for old school. And I qualify myself because I was in the front of the hip-hop movement at radio, the rhythm movement. And when hip-hop started getting played on the radio, or what was actually in the West Coast, sort of a dancey techno thing that ended up growing into hip-hop, or was termed hip-hop because the East Coast had its feel, the West Coast had its, and the West Coast was more based on dance music and was more of a techno-y sound at the time. And it took till 1994 when Dr. Dre put out The Chronic did we get that real West Coast lean and things started to slow down a little bit as opposed to the techno and dance music thing that was happening. But that was all a movement at radio, and I was on the radio in those days in this area. And now I'm a retired radio broadcaster after doing so many years of radio, and my love lies with the true school. Old school, 1982 to 1989, maybe even a little bit before 82, but not after 89 if I can help it. And this week we're talking about Shalamar. They started life as a manufactured group. So Dick Griffey, the talent coordinator for Soul Train, he decided to set up his own record label, and it was an acronym for the Sounds of Los Angeles Records, which is Solar Records. Dick took session musicians and created a hit record called Uptown Festival. It was credited to a faceless artist, Shalamar, in '77. When the record became a hit, he realized that there was a demand for an actual group, so he set up about creating one of the Soul Train dancers, Jeffrey Daniel, along with Jody, Watley, and singer Gary Mumford, and the latter of whom quickly left the group to pursue other interests. But Jeffrey Daniel had met Howard Hewett at an LA nightclub, Maverick Flat, a few years earlier, and already asked him to take up lead vocals after Mumford's departure. And at that time, Howard Hewett committed to another contract to tour Europe with a cover band. When Brown left, Daniel asked Hewett to come on board again, and this time he agreed. The rest is history. Hewett's first record the second time around in the main Billboard pop chart, indicating Shalamar's intention to cross over with an edgy sound, which incorporated funk and R&B and disco and pop. The trio consisted of Howard Hewett, lead vocalist, together with Jeffrey Daniel and Jody Watley. They became known as the classic lineup of the group Shalamar, and from late 79 to mid 83 they racked up more than a dozen hits all over the world: Europe, Africa, Japan. They were huge in the UK. Shalamar are also remembered for Jeffrey Daniels' famous appearance on Top of the Pops. That was a show that was sort of like Don Kirshner's rock concert that we had here, Top of the Pops, over the pond, where he introduced body popping and moonwalking to the UK audience. So Jeffrey Daniel is also an award-winning choreographer. He's well known for teaching the moonwalk to Michael, and he co-choreographed some of Michael's videos, for being his mentor. At the height of fame, at 83, Jody Watley and Daniel left Shalamar, and they left Hewett to continue the group with new members and further hits, resulting in a personal Grammy for Howard Hewett. In 1999, Howard Hewett and Jeffrey Daniel reformed the group, began touring again for a number of years. They left the third slot empty as they continued to invite Jody Watley back into the group. I just saw Jody. She was incredible. I mean, really. She was really, really, really good. But when they were happy that they had tried their best to encourage Watley to rejoin, they felt that they should look for another female vocalist, and they did. And the natural choice of replacement was Dick Griffey's daughter, Carolyn Griffey, right? She grew up around Solar Records. She was a preteen, spending much time in the offices and studios there at Solar of the original Shalamar, in the presence of them and their label bandmates, the Whisperers and Midnight Star, and Mother Carrie Lucas, herself an accomplished R&B artist. At the age of 18, Carolyn had a record deal with another group, Absolute, who had 2 songs featured on the soundtrack of the film Lambada. So for all intents and purposes, we focus here on the year 82 and pre, no later than 89. That sweet spot for Shalamar is noted here in the early to mid-80s. Their first hit, Uptown Festival, released on Soul Train Records. It was an interpolation of the songs in a disco mix, all one song. Okay, so they combined, interpolated all these songs. Like at the time, I remember the Stars on 45. I don't know if people remember Stars on 45, but they would do sing Beatles songs, and it was sort of in a mix, sort of the same BPM, and they would just kick every 10, 20, 15, 30, however, they would switch the songs, but it was still Beatles music being re-sung. Okay, so Uptown Festival, in the same vein, was an interpolation of the songs Going to a Go-Go, I Can't Help Myself, Sugar Pie, Honey Bunch, Uptight, Everything's All Right, Stop in the Name of Love, It's the Same Old Song, The Tears of a Clown, Love is Like an Itching in My Heart, This Old Heart of Mine is Weak for You, Baby Love, and He Was Really Saying Something, which of course you've got songs from Temptations and Smokey, Supremes. It's all a sing-over. Let's enjoy it right now from 1977 when Shalamar didn't even have a group. Dick Griffey put this out, Uptown Festival, on this week's Old School Rewind.
Yeah, yeah, well, there's a brand new place I found.
There's a great set of session players and singers, almost like the stars on series of the Beatles and others. Disco medleys. And in time, we're up to the Disco Gardens release from Shalamar, the second album, released in 1978 on Solar label. Features the lineup of Gerald Brown, Jeffrey Daniels, Jody Watley, and was the only Shalamar album on which Gerald Brown appeared. Disco Gardens was less successful than Shalamar's debut Uptown Festival, peaking at 52 on the R&B chart, 171 on Billboard's Hot 100, that's 71 below 100, contains early indications of what was to become the distinctive Solar sound, most notably on the single release Take That to the Bank, which was a UK top 20 hit in early 1979. Here it is now on this week's Old School Rewind. You're listening to Shalamar on the Old School Rewind podcast, and we're up to Big Fun, the third album from that group, released in 1979 on the Sounds of Los Angeles Records Solar label by Dick Griffey. This was produced by Leon Silvers III. It's the first album to feature what is considered the classic Shalamar lineup: Jeffrey Daniels, Howard Hewett, Jody Watley, with Hewett having replaced Gerald Brown. Big Fun, certified gold in the U.S. for sales over 500,000, peaked at number 4 on the R&B chart, number 23 on the Billboard chart, which was Shalamar's highest placing album on the chart at that time. But in the UK, it reached 45. They were big over there. The biggest hit of now from Big Fun is Second Time Around. And how familiar is the Second Time Around? A monster. And even the focus of a radio station promotion at the time in 1980, the band made a promotion of the Second Time Around for a radio station, KJR, in Seattle, and it was The Sonics Came to Play instead of the second time. The Sonics Came to Play, dedicated to the Seattle Supersonics, who had won an NBA championship the previous year. We're up to the Second Time Around here on the Old School Rewind podcast. Number one for old school. 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 Number one for old school.
Say it again. keep your mind the second time, baby. The second time around. So in love, so in love. The second time around. Oh, the second time around. The second time around. I'll make it so good, baby. I'll make it so good to you. Not like the first time. Not like the first time. Not like the first time. Talking about the second time. Not like the first time. Not like the first time. Not like the first time. Talking about the second time. The second time around. Gonna keep your mind the second time, baby. The second time around. I'll know what to do, just as long as I'm with you. The second time around. Do it one more time.
Now, this might be my favorite from Shalamar. Here is Make That Move on the Old School Rewind podcast.
Make that move right now, baby. Make that move right now, baby.
So many times, by holding back, I let the good things pass me by. And then one day I asked myself the reason why. Like an answer from above, you came into my life and showed me one thing for sure. With love, nothing is certain. You got to go for it when you feel it. Everybody needs somebody to love. And I choose you, baby.
So let's make that move right now, baby.
You only go out once in a lifetime.
Make that move right now, baby.
So natural to give in to feelings deep inside when love is due. And I knew something was missing, 'cause I feel brand new. And motivation's in my heart whenever I'm with you. So girl, whatever you do, just remember love is emotion. You got to hold on tight when you know it's right. Everybody needs somebody to love.
And I
Choose you, baby.
so let's make that move right now, baby.
You only go out once in a lifetime.
Make that move
Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing, subscribing to the Old School Rewind. This is Aaron, live from the 35 Acres and a Microphone podcast farm. We've got the bright light from Shalamar's music shining upon us. Up next on the podcast, tributing old school dance music, hip-hop, its relation to rhythm radio, and more is This Is for the Lover in You. And this is a song written by Howard Hewett, songwriter Dana Myers. The track, originally recorded by Shalamar, appeared on the 1980 platinum album 3 for Love. The song was the third single released. It peaked at number 17 on U.S. R&B chart in 1981, and then This Is for the Lover and You, later remade by Babyface from the album The Day, featuring LL and the former members of Shalamar, Howard, Jody, and Jeffrey. The Babyface version, a successful hit, reaching number 6 in the U.S. Hot 100, number 2 on the U.S. R&B, number 12 on the U.K. singles chart. The song considered to be atypical for Babyface when it was released. Here's the original on the Old School Rewind podcast.
It's got to be real. Girl, I could write a book on how you're making me feel. I know I'll never find another who could match the love you're giving to me. So this is for the lover in you. This ring means I'll always be true. This is how we'll start over new. This time it's gonna last forever. I trust you, yes I do. And girl, you're not the kind
baby. With this ring, I show you that there ain't no maybes. It's for the lover in you, baby. And this time we're gonna be together. It's for the lover in you, baby. With this ring, I show you that there ain't no maybes. It's for the lover in you.
Shalamar on the Old School Rewind podcast. The West Side connection to the Shalamar Band, the entire artist roster from Dick Griffey's label Solar, like Midnight Star more. That was the sound. Dickie had the ear. Howard Hewett, an incredible voice. And the vibe of the track is in the proverbial pocket here on Night to Remember. Here's Shalamar on the Old School Rewind podcast.
When you love someone, it's natural, not demanding. And that's one thing I'm proud to say I found in you. I'm so glad we reached an understanding. Now I know my heart is safe with you.
So pretty on the Old School Rewind podcast. Aaron, by your side, taking a look at Shalamar. I Can Make You Feel Good is a 1982 song from the Platinum album Friends that Shalamar did. It reached number 7 in UK, making it their first top 10 hit there. It's on right now on the Rewind.
Are you the kind who puts your heart on the line, or who stays out of reach? 'Cause unlike other guys, I won't waste your time. I just wanna practice what I preach. Girl, love can be such a challenge, a game where there can be two winners. Unlike any sport, it depends on the prize and knowing where the real thing lies. To make a long story short, baby, I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good. Let me lay this good love on ya. Baby, I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good. You can say I really want ya. Oh, so there's guys that offer you diamonds and pearls. Those are the wants, but not the needs. Other guys say that they can give you the world. Well, the world of love is what you get from me. Girl, those material things meant more to me before the day I found you. Now I truly believe all the money in the world can't comfort you the way I wrap my arms around you, and I'll always be there. 'Cause baby, I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good. Let me lay this good love on ya. Whoa, whoa. Oh, baby, I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good. You can say I really want ya. Let me make you feel good. I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good. Oh, so good, oh baby. Oh, so good. Let me lay it on you, baby. Oh, so good. Let me make you feel good. I can make you feel good. Let me make you feel good. I can make you feel good. Are you the kind to push your heart on the line, or who stays out of reach? 'Cause unlike other guys, I won't waste your time. I just wanna practice what I preach. 'Cause love can be such a challenge, a game where there can be two winners. Unlike any sport, it depends on the prize and knowing where the real thing lies. To make a long story short, oh, baby, I can make you feel good. I can make you feel so forget about what he did wrong. Oh, baby, I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good. Love that is oh so strong. I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good. Won't you let me make you feel good? I can make you feel good. Baby, I can make you feel good. I can make you feel good.
So we're talking about Shalamar on the podcast this week. I'm Aaron. The Look, in 1983, Solar label released the last album to feature the lineup of Jeffrey Daniels, Howard Hewett, and Jody Watley, as both Daniels and Watley left the group shortly before the release. The Look peaked at number 13 on the R&B chart, number 79 on the Billboard Pop chart. Like Shalamar's previous album, it was more successful in the UK, where it reached number 7. The Look certified gold in the UK. The Time guitarist Jesse Johnson plays rhythm guitar on Dead Giveaway, but was uncredited. It brought us the song Dead Giveaway from Shalamar on the Old School Rewind. Here it is. Here it is.
How long you gonna carry on this one-on-one charade? Let's start and then say we did. That's a game you like to play. Ooh, we've been through this so many times. The end result's always the same.
That's Dead Giveaway as we focus on the true school, old school of dance and hip-hop, paying tribute to Shalamar, the genius of Dick Griffey. His manufactured group has come a long way by now. Howard Hewett really delivers on the single Dancing in the Sheets. The song was written by Bill Wolfer and Dean Pitchford, featured on the chart-topping soundtrack 1984 motion picture Footloose. It was also the first single from their album Heartbreak, and it featured the new lineup of Howard Hewett, Delisa Davis, and Mickey Free. The synth melody on the song is similar in structure to Prince's 1999, of course, Mickey Free's influence. A music video was made featuring the new lineup of Shalamar. It didn't feature any footage from the film. Dancing in the Sheets was a top 20 hit on the Billboard charts, peaking number 17 on the Hot 100. Reaching number 18 on the Hot Black Singles chart. In the UK, it only climbed to number 41. Such a weird type of thing back then, how around the world it could be a hit, but here climbing the charts, or have some success in the UK and then not so much as the career goes on. Sort of strange. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Old School Rewind this week from the 35 Acres and a Microphone podcast farm. Enjoy Dancing in the Sheets. Next week up, The Whispers, as we pay tribute to the best era of music ever. Old School. From the Old School Rewind.
You're smiling. I know I've seen you here before. How come you're hiding? Hey, don't you wanna hit the floor? The place is crowded, or maybe you don't like the beat. I got a 2-track playing in my head, so let me take you somewhere else instead. Grab your coat and wave goodbye to your friends. I wanna take you where the night never ends. I feel the need to sweep you off of your feet. You and me, we should be dancing in the sheets. Dancing in the sheets. We feel the rhythm, we got the music on our side. If we go with them, I bet we'll have a wonderful ride. Your hands are cold, so maybe we can make some heat. Love is always born on a chance, so wrap around me and baby, let's dance. Dancing in the sheets. Grab your coat and wave goodbye to your friends. I wanna take you where the night never ends. I feel the need to sweep you off of your feet. You and me, we should be dancing in the sheets. Dancing in the sheets. Grab your coat and wave goodbye to your friends. I wanna take you where the night never ends. I feel the need to sweep you off of your feet. You and me, we should be dancing in the sheets. 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 Dancing in the sheets.
The Old School Rewind podcast is brought to you every week as a work of art by me, Aaron Goodwin. The podcast and its music are either pieces of music I own or are in the public domain and provided for education and information purposes only.